So yes, I ultimately decided to leave my crash pad, and I'm going to tell you the whole story as to how this came to be and how life is now without a crash pad as a full-time flight attendant, even though I am still commuting to base. So if you don't know what a crash pad is, I invite you to check out this video right here. It'll tell you everything you want to know about what it is, how to find one to fit your needs. But ultimately, I had two crash pads, one in Detroit, and I also had one here in Seattle. Now, I am a commuting flight attendant. I live outside of Portland, and for me to sometimes arrive late night from trips, sometimes I would need a crash pad. That's especially how it was over there in Detroit, being away, 4 hours or so away from home. It was absolutely necessary for me to do that because there simply weren't any flights to head back to the Portland area where I live. The reason I got a crash pad here is because ultimately I felt, well, I probably needed one here in Seattle. Since I had one in Detroit, it would stand to reason. And I did have one for a couple months, but ultimately I found that maybe it wasn't as necessary for me to have one. Now, the conditions of the crash pad were actually very good. It was a nice place, not very far away from the Seattle airport. In fact, I could walk to and from the airport in a matter of about 10 to 12 minutes. So it wasn't so horrible as far as distance. Sometimes the crash pad that I selected was because it was so close, that's kind of what I went for. There were other crash pads that I found that were a little bit more, a little further out. And because I didn't have a car in Seattle, it was a little difficult for me to imagine that I could be at those crash pads that were further out, even though they might have been, more roomier, right? I couldn't justify the time, and I would probably get myself into trouble heading that distance to get to work, and I would probably fail to report on time. So I didn't want to chance it, which is why I selected this closer crash pad. Now, this crash pad, everyone at the crash pad, very welcoming. A lot of them worked for my particular airline, but there were others from other particular airlines as well. But for me, it was a little tight. This particular crash pad was a little tight. So I had to sacrifice the space that this crash pad had for the distance it was from the airport. And it was, that was really truly my only lack. That was the only thing lacking in this particular crash pad. It was just maybe a little too tight for my needs, especially when you get home very late at night or have to leave early in the morning. I certainly don't want to disturb any of the other flight attendants that are sleeping or resting. And it made it a little difficult because things were really, really tight when it came to that. But everyone there was super nice. The owner was very accommodating. I actually enjoyed it very much. But ultimately, I left for that reason, but also mostly for this next reason. And the real reason was because ultimately, I was like, I may not need it. I'm only half an hour away on a flight from Portland to Seattle. And I really thought to myself, you know what? Right now, I might be able to get by just commuting from home, leaving an hour or two earlier from home, maybe arriving a little later at night. And with that, I would save myself the cost of having a crash pad. Now, let's talk about the cost. When I personally was paying between $275 to $325 with or without parking at this crash pad in Seattle. There are other people that I know in Seattle that pay approximately about $400. So the range, it varies a little bit depending on what you find and where you find it. But just to give you an idea of what the range is, that's how it goes. We were able to come and go as we pleased. It wasn't a problem. I was assigned a specific bunk, which was one of the upper bunks in one of the rooms. So that was gonna be my bed. That's what we call a cold bed when it's only yours. It's called a hot bed when you're using that specific bed with other people that are coming in. So this was actually a cold bed only assigned to me, which was very nice. So I got to leave my blankets and my pillows and everything like that, no problem. So really it just depends on what you find and what the price range is all about. Ultimately, I just thought, you know what, maybe I can make it so that I don't need a crash pad. So I decided to take the leap and leave the crash pad and see if I was able to survive getting to and from work without the crash pad. So far, it has been good. So far, I have been able to do it. I have not missed one single rotation, one single report time. There have been times when it's gotten close though, I will say. And I know during the months of December, things are very hairy. People are flying all over to see their loved ones during the Christmas holiday. And for the month of December, I know that I probably have to drive to work every single time I go, and that's probably about a 3-hour drive each way. Now, we're coming into the summer of 2024, and I don't know if it's gonna be somewhat of the same. I know that lately I've been noticing that the planes to get me to work and back home have been pretty full. Yes, planes are definitely getting fuller, therefore there are less seats for me to get on, and it's getting a little close. So with this new turn of events coming in with the summer, I might have to drive from time to time, or I might have to change my schedule so my rotations don't start at the beginning or at the end of the day. Maybe if they start somewhere in the middle, there might be a little bit more room for me on those commuting flights. But that is that. So yes, so far it has been good. I have not had a crash pad for a couple months. I have been able to get to work with no problem. So far it's working, and I'm saving myself the expense of a crash pad. If things change in the future, then I might need one. And depending on your situation, depending on where you live, if you're thinking about becoming a flight attendant or already are, then it really just depends on where you live, what your commuting flights are available to you, and all that sort of a detail, whether it's warranted or even just necessary flat out for you to have a crash pad. So to each his own, but to me, it looks like I've been pretty good so far, and we'll see. So, all right, well guys, that is exactly why I left my crash pad. Again, it wasn't an issue of personnel, it wasn't an issue of location. The location was beautiful, but ultimately I didn't really need it. So far everything has been pretty good. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you're doing great out there today. Let me know if you have any other questions, if you have any other concerns on crash pads. I'd love to answer them for you below in the comments. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. I have got some more awesome videos coming up for you very shortly, and I hope you stick around for those. A lot more on piloting that's coming up right around the corner, so I'm really excited to share that information with you as well, because there's a ton of information that I've been learning on what it takes to possibly transfer from becoming a flight attendant to a pilot, or just what the pilot life is all about. I'm still on the fence whether I'm going to do anything, but I'm just exploring. So I'll be happy to share with you all the information that I have learned. All right, have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for tuning in again. This is Valencia Flyer, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.